Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Yan. In this episode, you'll hear part one of my conversation with Sam Ascensio from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. More links and information about today's conversation can be found on Digication's Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Full episodes of Digication Scholars Conversations can be found on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Welcome to Digication Scholars Conversations. Today we have Sam Ascensio with us, and Sam is from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. And Sam, nice to meet you.
It's nice
We
to be
actually
here.
met. We actually met when during the spring 2001 ePortfolio showcase at John Jay. Uh, Gerard Texan had invited me to be there, and I met several of you who presented that day. You are amazing. You were all amazing. I think you were like the second one. I couldn't stay for that long, so I was able to stay for a few. But I was so happy to have met you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a fun experience. I've never done a showcase before. That was my first showcase. So,
Well,
meeting you was like a trip. I was like, oh my gosh.
well, it was not my first showcase, but it's my first time I had one of these showcase on Twitch. I
Yeah,
felt I felt really young doing it, but it was so well done. It was so pro. I mean, they had like all the switching of the cameras, and I think I had like a green room. Like we all had a green room to go to, right?
yeah, it was impressive.
It was
I
impressive. Yeah,
I was blown away. Even I'm pretty decent with Twitch, and I was like, wow, I don't even know how they did that. It was amazing. I had a great time.
yeah, yeah. Um, and Gerard sounds like, I mean, seems like, he's such a great, he's so great, and I that was genuinely one of the like funnest showcase events, including those that are in person. So you guys really knocked it out of the park.
I'm
Um,
glad.
so I was so impressed by your work, and I think I had already told you that the Connections is the project, and I just absolutely love it. Do you want to? I don't want to. I think you're gonna be best to tell us what Connections is, and um, uh, I hope that people can really pay attention to this because uh, I just find it so incredibly inspiring by someone who actually founded this. This is really much more than a portfolio or website or project. It's something much bigger. So please tell us.
Sure. So the reason it's called Connections, it actually stands for a larger terminology. It's queer connections. So that's originally what I kind of started the concept of as. Even before that, it was just kind of just peer-to-peer mentoring, and then even before that, it was like some sort of LGBT question mentoring project. So a lot of it was just me sitting in a room just talking to my friend, like, and it's very funny because the reason it's called Connections was actually just because I really want to make a really cute logo. And so I thought I was like, oh, like I really want to do like a Q, like something and design it. And my friend just looked at me and was like, QC stands for Queen's College. And I was still determined to stay with the Q, but I was like, I can't get away with this now. So I'm just gonna leave it as Connections so I can still get that QC in there because I enjoyed it. So it's very funny how it ended up, but a lot of people don't know how to read it because it's a Q apostrophe Onections. The Gmail is hell to use, I will say, when we have to log in. But yeah, so that's originally like how the name really came to be. But the concept itself was something like 4, 5 plus years in the making for me. I want to say it was probably my dream, my entire college career to do, and the pandemic just kind of really let me explore what all of the things that I wanted to do. So I'm gender fluid. I'm a transgender activist on campus and in New York City, and it's something that I struggled with my whole life. Like especially because as a gender fluid person, I always say like I'm a minority of a minority of a minority. People don't really know what I am. People are just like, what is that? And I spent my whole life trying to explain it to people. My mom still doesn't get it to this day. I have this joke that I come out every year at Chili's, and she loves it just because she gets the free food. Um, but so it's been my whole life trying to figure out, how to come out. I was the first person in my high school to come out. I was, dressing very masculine. I didn't get, the best reception. So it was very, very hard for me. And my whole life, I was like, I wish I had known. I didn't even really know about my identity till someone else explained to me and I just fit. Like someone was like, I was like, I feel like a guy, but not really a guy. I feel like a girl, but not really a girl. Like I'm so confused. Like I'm just different. And my friend's like, you might be gender fluid. And I was like, what is that? I Googled it and it just stuck. I was the happiest I had ever been in my whole life. And I was like, I want everyone to have this experience. I just never knew how. Um, and so, during my sophomore year, I was a peer success coach at John Jay. It's my favorite job. It's the most amazing job in the universe. I get to work with other students, and I was like, the whole job with being a peer success coach is supporting students through their academic journey, helping them through school, and I loved it. It helped me. I was a college dropout. It was hard for me. Having that support really meant a lot to me. So it was so difficult in the beginning to kind of think to myself like I being queer and being a student and being a different type of student. I wanted all of that together, but I felt so caught. And God bless the time the director, who was also my professor. His name is Jay Chopra. He was like, "Hey, why don't we do this thing called the Student Belonging Project?" So a lot of it was pretty much us finding student populations and researching how we can make them belong or how we can support them to belong in college settings. And one of the things that I realized with Latinx students and queer students is that a lot of them really need, some kind of familiar bond, some support at the macro micro levels, the larger scales and the smaller scales. And one of the things that they mentioned in a lot of these research articles was mentoring. And it just, to me, I was like, that's it. That's what I want to do. But how am I going to get there? So a lot of it was just different types of concepts coming together. At the time, I was part of what was then the LGBT club, which we now changed Spectra to be more inclusive. And a lot of it was just kind of me saying like I want to talk to these students, I want to help them, so I was sending them like success tips, like here's where to go to school, and it was working. People were liking it, but it was like, exhausting because I was like running a social media by myself. I was supporting this team, I had my job, I had my family, I was like everywhere, like 1,000 places at once. And it was stressful, and at the same time I was like, if there was an LGBT center, this would be more helpful. And you never know what to do with an LGBT center. You don't know what to expect. You go in and you're like, ah, rainbow flag, this is perfect. But that's not really what we're looking for. You think that's what you want, but you get there and it's like cookies and some rainbow cookies and some cupcakes and rainbow flag, and people are like, yeah, it's okay to be gay, and you think that's what you need. But when you're someone like me who's just been in this place where you're like, I need help with school, I'm a first generation, like you have all these intersectionalities, you kind of sit down for a while and you're like, I can't breathe. I need help.
Right.
And I started to realize with these students, they would be like, I really want to do what you're doing. Can I try it? And I was like, yeah, like come sit with me. So we'd be on Zooms. I hosted these things called study halls. I was helping with resumes. And I kind of sat with myself and I kept looking over this thing. I created something called the Rainbow Paw Project, which was like my whole plan to get this LGBT center to happen. And that mentor program was still on there. I was like, far away dream, somebody else will make it. This is never going to involve me. I'll give it to someone, it'll happen. And eventually I was sitting with my advisor and I was sitting with my friends and I was like, like this would be so great during a pandemic, like one on ones. It could happen if only someone would do it. And and finally my advisor looks at me and I remember we were on Twitch. This is the best part about it. We were on Twitch and we were just like hanging out on Twitch and he just like turns from his camera and he's just like he looks at the chat. He's just like, how about you do it? And I was like, I could never do this. This is impossible. He's like, just put it under your club's banner and do it. Just throw it. And I was like, okay. So I started right off that day, and I was using different types of apps. I was using Google. I made my own Gmail. I was like calling my friends. I was like, I know you, come here. And my friends were so anxious. They're like, I could never be a mentor. I'm like, are you gay? How long have you been gay? A year? That's fine. Come here. Like, oh, you're asexual? Come here. You didn't even need a qualifier. I was just like, you're an ally. You'll teach other people how to be. Come here. Like, I was just calling people. I was like, I'll give you like free food. Like, whatever. Just come with me. And I was calling my friends, I was grabbing people left and right. People didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, it's just gonna happen. It's gonna be like the Disney World. Like I didn't care. It just had to happen. So I had this like ragtag group of like underdog queers that were like, we're gonna do something. We're gonna be professors, and I was excited. Um, and so one of the things for me is I kind of sat for a while and I wanted to create these pillars. So one of the things that I always say with connections is we have four buds because I see everyone like a little garden. A lot of LGBT folks, we grow coming out as a growing process. A lot of people think it's like, you kick in the door, you're done. That's not how it works. I know I came out that way. Like literally, I came out kicking a closet door in, but that's not the way everyone goes. I'm just that person. But you don't have to follow my story. And I realize, like, a lot of people think like I have to be this. There's these all these markers that are like you're gonna get an official queer card at the DMV. Like it's not gonna happen. We'd like it to, but it's not gonna happen. And so we want to feel affirmed. We want to feel wanted. So for me, I just wanted to create that space. So, I sat there and I was like, queer connections. We're going to connect with each other. Maybe you'll tell me your story. We'll share. We'll all sit in a circle and we're going to learn something together. And, me being trans, I had to learn a lot of the times in my life, how to stand up in a classroom and say, that's not my pronouns. Like, that's not my name. This is who I am. And you're going to respect it. I am your student. And it's a scary process. You're going up against authority a lot. Um, and so a lot of it was like all of us just being these scared little LGBT folks trying to do our best to support each other. But at the end of the day, it was about family. So I realized I sat with myself and I was like, okay, I want four things that really mean a lot in coming out and having a journey. And those were the buds. We're growing as people, we're growing as a garden. So, I had to give up my QC logo and I made a little kind of plant. So connections is very green. I made the connections very, very green. I made the education very green. And it's very tech based because we were in tech at the time. Everything was tech based. And so finally, I created these four buds, and it's called CALI, because it's easy to remember, but it stands for community, advocacy, leadership, and identity, which is the core parts of discovering who you are. Like community is obviously building that community around you. You're not gonna like everybody, but a lot of queer people have something called their chosen families, their chosen names. This is who you choose to be, who you want to be with. These are people who are going to lead you your whole life. A lot of people call me dad, and I'm only a couple years older than them because I will protect them. I'll be there no matter what. And I love them just like they're my own kids. And it's so crazy to think that that's the kind of family I have now, but that's the experience, and it's a beautiful thing to be in. And learning to advocate for yourself is standing up. It's having self care. A lot of queer people, they tend to get into a lot of situations that can be very painful to them, traumatizing and re-traumatizing. And no one ever really asks, like, it's or tells you that it's okay to cry, to be hurt, to say that this hurts, to say that this is not okay. And when it comes to leadership, it's learning when to step back and learning when to step forward, and learning when to step that in between. My boss calls it dance floor theory, where it's like, you take someone with you in the party, or sometimes you're a wallflower, or sometimes you're the person doing, the sprinklers in the middle of the room. It's whatever it is. And identity is who we are. It's constantly changing. You're never gonna fit in a box, but knowing who you are, and identifying with who you are is was really a core part of how all of that happened. It was a long journey, but it's kind of where it landed.
So you, what did you study, and how did you know how to do this? Does it even have anything to do with what you studied?
Oh, it's funny that you say that. So I originally started out as forensic science because in my head I was like, I'm gonna be, that crime person on an A&E or whatever that show is. I was so determined. Like my mother, I was like, give me a microscope. This is my life. You'll never see me. I'll be locked away in a lab. I was so determined. And when I got to John Jay, I tried out the classes, and I did well. I just didn't really like it. It wasn't for me. I felt unhappy. So I kept trying to try different things of my life. I went to English because I was like, that's my passion. I'm going to be a poet. I continue to think these things. It's very funny because I get so passionate, but then it never clicks for me the right way. So I did English, and I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to protect people. Didn't work out. Like I liked it, but again, it was like, it just didn't, there was just like that spark that just didn't spark for me. And so that's kind of where I was. I was an English major with an art minor. None of those things, like the art minor helped a lot with the design aspect, but everything else there wasn't much there. And so I really think it was being a peer success coach that helped a lot because it was the first time I've kind of gotten a taste of education and student support and academic support
Mm.
services. And so, sitting there, I kind of was like, it's time to make a career path change. So I actually currently now I have my own concentration, my own major that John Jay let me make. And it stands for career education reform. And my second concentration is social activism and innovation. So I'm very happy where I landed. But it definitely just kinda like Connections was its own discovery process to realize, like, I wanna be an educator, I wanna be in these spaces, I wanna be in student support services, I wanna be an admin, like, I love this, I love queer stuff, but even back then, like, even before starting Connections, I was like, "Yeah, I'm trans, but, like, I would never super be an advocate for that, I don't see myself in that," and so the path that I took was a really long journey in the pandemic, but I've enjoyed it and it was beautiful and I don't regret a single moment of it, but I did wish I know about this major stuff earlier.
You know, it's amazing that you basically just created your own major, a major and a minor. Did you say?
It's a double concentration,
Is it
yeah.
double? Yeah. So that's insane. That's I don't I, there are schools that sort of are structured to do that. I didn't think John Jay was structured to do that. So I think you just willed it to happen.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's something called a CUNY BA, so it's all of CUNY, so I can take
Mhm.
like any classes anywhere in New York. So it's kind of like a passport, and I wish I had done it earlier, but I'm so excited to start this new
Yeah.
journey in my life.
Well, maybe through this more people would know about it because I can only imagine how many people would want to do that,
Yes.
in all different directions. Um, I I am just like amazed by the the level of maturity, but also just the almost like a sense of like almost like you have this very clear sense of this is I can do this, I can be good at this, but it didn't click, and so I'm going to look for something that does. I think it's for a lot of people, not just young people, but like all of different ages and different with the different experiences. It takes us almost like certain, I don't know, both personality and bravery and maybe it's a some almost some sort of sixth sense to identify and and sort of hone in on it and just like grab it and run with it. And I think that like the fact that you try different things and you go, oh, I'm try this and it didn't work, try this didn't work, um almost feel like that is an amazing skill. What do you think made you um develop that? Were you like that when you were a kid?
Um, sort of, like, I'll be honest, I my life is very strange. I was actually a semi-professional soccer player before I even went to college. My father was a semi-professional soccer player, my brother
Wow.
was. Yeah, I was supposed to go to England, play for Arsenal, I was supposed to do all these things, and I
What?
genuinely yeah, I genuinely thought this was there's, like, a bunch of trophies in my room from when I was, like, 18. This literally, I thought this was my life calling. But I was in a mix at the time, I was always kind of between schooling and soccer. Like I'd be doing like, did y'all know, like, if you do this physics thing, like our goalpost, and everyone would look at me like, shut up, like, why are you doing physics during soccer practice? But I would also be really good that I was getting like Olympic player points that I made it to states at the time, and so I was like around, like next to professional players. I was qualified to go, and I just something my dad just, like, kinda, like, looked at me. This man who had been my hero, who was a professional before me, who had trained me my whole life, looked at me, and he's like, "This is not your path." And, like, I remember I had put up my hand, I wanna be a professional soccer player. I was like, "This is my life," and he just slowly put down my hand. He's like, this is not for you. I know that it's not for you. And I was so frustrated at him, like, you trained me. You were my coach. You were my dad. Like, you did this. My brother did this. You never stopped him. Like, I thought it was this big thing. And my dad is like, it's not, because, you have this passion for something. And I was doing college courses at NJCU at this thing called Proyecto Science. I was doing engineering courses when I was like 13. I was exploring a lot of things. I was so excited. And he's like, if you do soccer, it's going to become your whole life and you're not going to experience learning. And I remember at the time I had gotten into this like the best school in the state of New Jersey. It was like this big deal to get in, and I didn't want to go. And my dad was like, go, like, do this, follow your dream. And I didn't understand really at all. And so I definitely kind of had this attitude of like frustration, confusion. Like even out of high school, I was just like, it's all about grades. It's not really about passion. I was frustrated. I was angry. Like I didn't even want to go to college. I was so angry at the world. Like I just had so much like I don't get it. Like I feel lost. And I definitely think it was definitely SAS that kind of like awakened in this thing with me, because I remember sitting like we had like classes at the time and we were talking about growth mindset versus stable mindset. And I remember they had asked me something about like how I feel about classes, and I was like, "Well, I see life as two things, either a hoop or a portal." And they were like confused at me, and I was like, "Well, a hoop is something you jump through. A portal is an experience. So even if I hate something, I'm gonna make it all the way through the end because then I can complain about every single aspect of it, and that was an experience." So I kind of see everything as something I wanted to try. Like I liked law, but I didn't know till I kept trying, and I was like, not for me. I liked forensic science, but I didn't like it and stopped liking it until I was like, okay, there's a point where it wasn't for me. And I was just trying my hands at everything, and I realized like I don't think I would have had this mindset if it wasn't like, something I realized I could have. Like I definitely think I came from a background where it was like, oh, it's all academic, it's all grades, it's about being the top percent and culling the rest. And it was a sad existence for me because I was like, I want to hear everyone's opinions. Like I want to explore, like I want to get like down and dirty, like I want to fail, but it felt like I was not allowed or I was not supposed to fail. Me
Mhm.
coming from a soccer player background who would like have terrible, like I would score my own team by accident, it'd be horrible, but I'd still have to get up and play. Like, so it's
Yeah.
like, these two different worlds I wasn't really mixing with at the time. So I definitely think it was my job. It was being in a peer success has definitely changed the entirety of my life. And, everything I learned there is about supporting a student. But I think the thing they don't tell you about that job is you also learn to support yourself in different ways. So I definitely think that they helped my mindset, but they definitely strengthened it to tell me like this was okay, and that sense of identity really helped.
Isn't it amazing that you have these parts of life that offers you there, like you went to school, you went to supposedly the greatest schools, or wherever, like the places where you think that learning is going to happen, or that's where you expect. Maybe it doesn't happen there, but it happens somewhere else. And it's just by and I think that it takes people who has sensitivity like you, who can identify them and take advantage of these opportunities. Because I think that many people uh, may have actually the same opportunities, but they don't know that it's there because they're not looking. And I think in some sense, in your case, uh, because of the success that you've had, as a soccer player, for example, um, but you had such strong feelings about things that you like and you don't like, and things that you're meant to do and things that you weren't meant to do, that it just made you look in a more um, I don't know, want to say critical ways, but in a way that makes you look even deeper than what just was expected, or what made sense on paper.
Absolutely. I definitely think I learned that from my father. He came here, did not know any English, and he told me the story about he literally traded Spanish rice to learn English. And he's like, nobody expected me to learn it. Nobody believed in me. And I learned it. And he would tell me about how he would look at cars and like do the license plate letter by letter. He would write
Mhm.
everything down on post-it notes, and he's like, just do the unexpected. And I think to me, I was like, there's my dad who could be a plumber, but at the same time is also doing this high business class job. And I definitely think he definitely was an inspiration for that kind of thinking for me. It was very exploratory.
He sounds like an amazing guy.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And I was going to say that, um, I mean, coming into this conversation, I was thinking, there's so much uh, to talk about in terms of identity, but also your ability to organize this. I mean, just just maybe give us a sense of, um, uh, connections. There are a lot of mentors now involved with this. Can you give us a sense of like how big it is, and like what is this organization like at John Jay?
Sure. So originally it was students. So it's just me, the director, the founder, the person who knew everything, teaching everyone, and we would make Google Slides, and we would meet 2 days. We'd meet one day, and we meet 2 times. So we'd meet at 8 a.m. and we'd meet at 12. So everyone had a chance to try it. And it was just us talking about things like, "Oh, here's what I do in class. Here's what I do this." And there was like 15 mentors. None of us knew what we were doing. We'd like be on a WhatsApp chat trying to organize. It was so messy in the beginning. We weren't paid for this. It was just us, as queer people coming together to be like, we're gonna help other queer people. And it was like people would have mentors who were like older than them, younger than them, who they knew, who they didn't know. But I remember for me, it was a lot of like building off what I knew. It was like, okay, in SAS, this is like how I pick my mentees. This is not going to work because this is 15 people. And my boss definitely helped a lot, being like, here's an idea. Here's where you can go with this. So a lot of it was like me on Google spreadsheets trying to figure this out, trying to do this. And now it's like 56 students and the same 15 mentors, and now they're getting paid. They're getting paid a good like what $2,000 stipend, I think it is. They have a full time director. They have to go through a contract now. And I remember back then, my contract was just basically just like, don't do anything weird. Please don't get me in trouble. I'm trying my best. Like, just sign here. This is a Google document. This is not even notarized, but like, I will yell at you. Just don't do it. And I tried to scare people by making this contract. I I remember just typing it up on a Google Doc, and it was just we tried to make it look super official. We had a thing for signatures, and people were like emailing them to me, texting me contracts. Like, no one found that suspicious, I guess, but at the time it was a lot of like showing, like it was like puffing up, like we were this bigger thing than we actually were, but it worked. I remember we had like little virtual graduation, and we had these little like yeah, we used this thing called Gather Town. It was like a little video game. So we had them do their final presentations and we were gonna grade them. And I told all my mentors, I was like, they're all gonna pass. Like, I hope you know that. Like, they were here, they made it, they're gonna pass. But I even failed a student on the last like graduation. I looked at him, I was like, this is an F. And he was like so terrified. I was like, for fantastic. And everyone was everyone was so mad. He was so mad at me. He was my favorite one of my favorite mentees. But back then it was literally just 15 of us on a little group chat, sometimes getting on Zoom and just using Google Slides and trying to talk things out and using Google Docs. A lot of it was like Google Docs, Google Slides, and like writing things and talking. It was like therapy, but like also a learning experience. But it was just literally like 15 of us total. Like we had all these titles, like we had mentor, director, admin, but that was just like, you're the person who puts it on Digication. You're the person who texts everyone. Like that's your job. But none
Mhm.
of us knew what we were doing. It was we didn't even know what a mentor was at the time. Like, what is a queer mentor? But we had the term. There was a first. We were the first. So it was messy, but it was fun. It was very fun. But now it's 56 students who are just telling me about the program, and they have to go through an interview process. It's very serious now, and I love it. I think we're like one of the only colleges I know that have it, and I'm just like, yes, we're the best.
This concludes part one of our conversation with Sam Ascensio from John Jay College of Criminal Justice. To hear part two, please be sure to subscribe to Digication Scholars Conversations on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Digication Scholars Conversations is brought to you by Digication, a technology platform powering the most innovative e-portfolio programs in K-12 and higher education. Our website can be found at digication.com. This episode was produced by Drew Albanesius and Amanda Driscoll. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. Thanks for watching.